Welcome, welcome, welcome. Mussar Monday. We're back with the Eretz series from Rabbi Adin Evans Israel Steinsaltz, and with the Mashava, which is an overview of Jewish philosophy. This is Rabbi Adin Even Israel Steinsaltz. Um, Rav Bernstein, may his memory be for a blessing, kept this man in very high esteem, and he said if there was anyone that would bring back the Sanhedrin, it was this gentleman. And I hope I'm speaking of the right person, but he is just a titan in the. He passed away, I believe, during the COVID. But he's a titan in the Jewish world, from what I understand, and also I don't think you can see them, but he also wrote he redid the Talmud, translated in English, and in a way that we can understand, us English speakers can understand, with all kinds of helps and aids. Just a titan. Anyway, he's got a whole series dedicated to helping Jews understand Judaism. I think that's the best way to say it. And so we're just looking at his series of different topics. So I'd like to dedicate this shiur in the memory of Rabbi Stephen Bernstein, my mom Iris Elizabeth Roque, Carolyn Jones, and I'd also like to dedicate this to Harold and Carrie Roque. Also my uncle, Uncle Calvin Hines, and my cousin Harold. I'd like to dedicate this to their memories as well. Who would you like to dedicate this shiur to? May their memories be for a blessing. Let's go. Okay. So we ended off last week with let's see. We did this. We're on the life cycle, and we did pregnancy and birth, and we also did the giving of a name. Now this week we'll be looking at the covenant of circumcision, and also the Bar Mitzvah. All right, so let's see how Rabbi Steinsaltz is instructing the Jewish people, ones who may not have training on what things are. Let's see how he is telling them what these things are. Listen. We do not lean on our own understanding. We lean on the understanding of Israel to understand what these things are. Full stop. All right. If you ever see me saying, I know what, I done lost it, you got to put me on a rocking chair and rock me on out of here, because I done lost my mind. Let's go. On the 8th day, after the birth of a baby boy, this is Rabbi Steinsaltz talking. He is saying, we Jews, not me no Jew, me Christian, okay? He says we, or American, whatever. Jews are American too. But we Jews bring him, the baby boy, into the covenant of circumcision. After the birth of the baby boy, we bring him on the 8th day after the birth. Okay, a covenant is a powerful and significant relationship, and the circumcision is a symbol of the unbreakable bond between us, the Jewish people, and the Holy One, blessed be He, our patriarch, Abraham. He was the first to be commanded to circumcise himself. And his son Isaac was the first to be circumcised when he was 8 days old. Now you guys may know, I'm just looking to see if he has anything about Ishmael. Ishmael, I believe, was 13 when he got circumcised. But Rabbi Steinsaltz's point is Isaac was 8 days old when they circumcised him, when Abraham did that. Since then, the covenant has symbolized our deep connection to God, which is ingrained in our very being. literally ingrained in every man's flesh, this covenant. So the sages explain that excuse me, I have to be drinking liquids throughout. Help my voice. The sages explain that the circumcision takes place specifically on the reproductive organ in order to reduce excessive desire. Wow! Circumcision is a constant sign on our bodies that reminds us that God shines his face upon us wherever we are. I guess so. Every time you go to the bathroom, you realize Hashem is shining his face on you. If you look at it like that, huh? At the time of the circumcision, we pray that the child will have a holy soul and will be able to study Torah and observe the mitzvot. Wow, a holy soul. So we pray that the child will have a holy soul and be able to study Torah and observe the mitzvot. This is interesting because you might say to yourself, why should the child not have opportunity to have a holy soul? Like, maybe they're born to secular parents. Jewish, but secular, and don't understand how to run a Jewish household. Maybe all things can happen. All kind of things can happen. So whatever it is, Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz said that's something we ask for. We don't take for granted. I think that's kind of beautiful. Okay. This section is called the reasons for circumcision. These are the mitzvot that we fulfill only because we have faith in God, and we are certain that if he gave us a particular mitzvah, a commandment to fulfill, it is good to fulfill it. So circumcision is a mitzvah, a command, that is difficult to comprehend. Yet our patriarch Abraham fulfilled it, and we follow in his footsteps, having faith in he who gave the mitzvah. Kind of like we don't know what's going on, but we are still going to do it because we're following in faith of our father Abraham. And I just want to point that out for a second because Moshe, with the children of Israel, told them to follow your commandments and have faith. So you might say to yourself, well, Jews have to follow all the commandments. They have to follow all the 613 commandments. How does it look like with the faith part? There you get it right there. Just the fact that their forefathers were doing these things, they do them by faith too, although honoring the way Hashem wants the Jews to live life. So I think that's a really cool way of showing the faith. That's what our father Abraham did. That's what we do. Why not? So the rabbi said, in fact, our minds have no access whatsoever to divinely mandated actions, and what is more, the mind rejects them and accepts them only like a sick person agrees to the doctor's orders or medicines. Behold, the commandment of circumcision, which is far from reason, and it contains nothing approaching society's laws. Yet you see that Abraham fulfilled it with regard to himself. Despite the natural difficulty involved, as he was when he was 100 years old when he got it, he also fulfilled it with regard to his sons as well. And in this way, it became a mark of the covenant, so that the divine would cling to him and his descendants. As God said to him, I will establish my covenant between me and you and your descendants after you, throughout their generations, for an eternal covenant, to be your God and for your descendants after you. That's from Genesis 17, verse 7. But that whole part is from Rab Yehuda Halevi and Kuzari. Chapter 3, verses 67. All right. Now it says, all the sons of the Jewish people are righteous when they become members of the people of the Holy One. Blessed be he at circumcision. The covenant is an offering to God. It is as though we are offering up our children when they are 8 days old. Rabbi Abba began and said, your people, they are all righteous. That's found in Isaiah 60, verse 21. This matter was explicated by the sages. They said, why is it written, your people, they are all righteous? Is all of Israel righteous? The sages are asking. The sages are asking this. There are, in fact, some people who are liable for punishment, the sages are saying, in Israel. Some sinners, some evildoers, some evildoers who transgress the Torah's commandments. Rather, this is what they taught in the mystical teachings. Meritus are Israel, who willingly meritus are Israel, who willingly perform an offering to the Holy One, blessed be He, as they offer up their 8-day-old children for circumcision as offerings. When they are circumcised, they enter the good graces of the Holy One, blessed be He, as it is written. But the righteous is the foundation of the world, in Proverbs 10:25. Since they have entered into this lot of the righteous, they are called righteous. That comes from the Zohar, chapter 1, verse 93a. Okay, so Rav Adin Steinsaltz wants to continue on this topic of the reasons for circumcision. So here's another one. Circumcision does not impair the practical functioning of the reproductive organ, but it does reduce excessive desire. And in this manner, a man improves his character, and the mark of the covenant also distinguishes all who have entered in the covenant from outsiders. The most important reason for circumcision, okay, he wants to talk about reducing excessive desire. So this commandment does not come to fix a deficiency in the design of the creation. It's not, by cutting into your flesh, it's not fixing something that was an issue, but rather it's to fix a deficiency in man's character. The physical harm caused to that organ is the deliberate goal. Circumcision does not damage any vital function, nor is the ability to have children impaired as a result. But the fervor of sensuality and excessive desire are lessened because of it. This is my opinion. This, in my opinion, is the most important reason for circumcision. That's what from Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz. Another reason, the covenant of circumcision unites all the faithful and distinguishes them from others. So with regard to circumcision, excuse me, there is, in my opinion, another very important matter, which is that all who are of this worldwide view, namely the Jewish people, the believers in the oneness of God, have a common physical mark. And a person who is not one of them cannot claim that he is one of them when he is an outsider, which is something he may do in order to make a profit or to attack members of the faith. A man would not perform this act of circumcision upon himself or upon his children unless it was out of true faith. And this is not a scratch on a leg or a burn on the arm, but rather something that is considered extremely difficult. Now, this argument was prepared by the Rambam in the Guide to the Perplexed. The Guide of the Perplexed, in the chapter 3, or maybe it's part 3, verse 49. Now we're going to switch over to the subject of the meaning of the covenant of circumcision. Excuse me one second. The mark of the covenant indicates the deep connection between us and the Holy One, blessed be He. Even when we are distant or in a dark place, God is with us and He lights up the darkness for us. The meaning of the covenant is the connection between our souls and God. This is the essence of the covenant of circumcision, which is called a covenant, a new permanent alliance between two parties who were previously distant. For the body is alienated from the spiritual, and through this organ, closeness and connection are achieved. In truth, this organ is an exception that teaches us all about all the rest. That the spiritual realm is close, but covered in darkness. Therefore, when permission is granted to remove the outer covering from this organ, its inner spiritual aspect is awakened. That's a way to look at it. The Holy One, blessed be He, is with us always. This is what another point Rav Adin Steinsaltz wants to make. The merit of circumcision always accompanies a man, and we should learn from this that the Holy One, blessed be He, walks everywhere with the person who serves God. That's from Rav Adin Steinsaltz, got that from Rabbi Yehuda Aryeh Leib, Alta, from the Safat Emet Lech Lecha 5644. Now, here's another point he wants to make about the meaning of the covenant of circumcision. An infant is circumcised when he's 8 days old, just like our patriarch Isaac was circumcised at 8 days old, and unlike Ishmael, son of Abraham, who was circumcised at the age of 13. The difference between these two ages represents two different notions of the covenant. Do we enter the covenant out of understanding and consent, or is it a covenant of devotion, which is not limited to one's level of knowledge or understanding? The connection is formed at a moment when the infant is too young to understand or agree with the act. Isaac was circumcised at the age of 8 days. An 8-day-old infant is not considered to be giving consent to entering into a covenant with God, and nevertheless he's bound at that point to the Holy One, blessed be He, with an unbreakable bond, as the verse states, an eternal covenant. That's in Genesis 17, verse 7. Another point that Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz wants to make is the connection, the connection between the connection between us and the Holy One, blessed be He, is not limited to particular levels of understanding or intellect. So on this point, Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz says, when establishing in generations of Jews, there's no place for a natural approach. When establishing generations of Jews, there is no place for a natural approach. The very essence and existence of the Jewish people are supernatural. The entire existence of a Jew, from his conception and birth, it's through miracles. Without any regard for nature, like Isaac, who was born when his parents were elderly. The Holy One, blessed be He, said to our patriarch Abraham, true Jewish satisfaction comes only from a child whose birth and beginnings are caused by God, and who, when he is 8 days old, at the first opportunity, as before this, it is dangerous to circumcise a child, is bound to the Holy One, blessed be He, in an eternal covenant. Although he still doesn't understand, and there's no possibility of asking him, the Judaism of such a boy will not be limited by his knowledge or by intellect, but will be imbued with devotion. Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz got that from Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson from Likutei Sehot, part 1, pages 20 through 21. Now, here's another subject change, still in circumcision, but now what to do during the circumcision. So when parents circumcise their child, they should greatly rejoice. And after the circumcision, they should pray for the child that he will have a holy soul and be able to study and practice Torah. When one brings his son to circumcise him, a great joy will be awakened in his heart, and he shall glorify and praise God for granting him a son and the ability to bring him into the covenant of our patriarch Abraham. And he shall rejoice with a great joy in his heart, a spiritual joy which entails cleaving to him, that he may be blessed. And he shall pray to the Lord immediately after the circumcision that he will bestow upon the child a holy soul, enabling him. What does this holy soul do? It enables him to learn, to teach, to keep the commandments, to perform them, and to fulfill the Torah and its commandments. That's what a holy soul enables you to do. He shall bless the child and let others bless him too. That's from Rabbi Yeshaya Halevi Horowitz in the Shani Luchot HaBerit in Hulin 43-44. And then Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz has a final comment. Rabbi Shalom of Belts was invited to celebrate a circumcision. And he said to the child's father, "Today your circumcision was completed." And the man asked in astonishment, "Say what? My circumcision?" And the tzaddik explained, "Every mitzvah must be fulfilled perfectly, in thought, in speech, and in act. We perform the act of circumcision on an infant, but he does not fulfill the thought aspects of the mitzvah, as he does not yet possess understanding. Only when one brings his son into the covenant of our patriarch Abraham does he rectify the thought that was missing at his own circumcision." So that's a cool little story that Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz gave there. Now on to our next subject, the Bar Mitzvah. Let's see what the Jewish person is supposed to be, or what the understanding is around the bar mitzvah. Okay, at age 13, interesting. So now we actually get to that age that Ishmael was actually at when he was getting circumcised. We're at bar mitzvah age now, 13. So let's see what this says. So at the age of 13, a boy becomes bar mitzvah. That's funny. It just says bar mitzvah, not bar mitzvah, not bar mitzvah. I don't know other words, but I always hear bar mitzvah. I guess that's us Englishing it up. He becomes bar mitzvah. He becomes obligated by Torah law to observe the mitzvot. I just want to say, please put down in the notes if you have anything different, but the thing is, what should be understood from the word he becomes bar mitzvah, a son of the mitzvah, the commandments, a son of the commandments. So just wanted to say that. If you have a different understanding, please put it down below. Okay, he becomes obligated by Torah law to observe the mitzvot. So law says by 13, you are observing all these 613. I know there's no temple, but that's the understanding. At this age, prior to this, he is educated in the observance of the mitzvot and the study of Torah, but this education is an obligation instituted by the sages on his parents. So the sages are obligating the parents. You must make sure he gets a proper education to learn how to fulfill the Torah. So when he has this age, he knows what to do. The child's Torah obligation begins when he becomes bar mitzvah. So that's when his obligation starts. From this point onward, a man is accompanied by angels who guard his footsteps. He becomes whole and is infused with his holy soul. Wise choices made at this age will make it possible for him to walk a straight path all his life. And now we're getting our first subject matter in the bar mitzvah. So Rav Steinsaltz says the change that occurs at the bar mitzvah. That's what this subtitle is. So from one's bar mitzvah onward, 2 angels accompany the person. When he walks a straight path, they rejoice with him. But if he walks a crooked path, they abandon him. Yeah. The Holy One, blessed be He, does good for mankind. As once one reaches the age of 13, he places with him 2 guardian angels to guard him, one to his right and one to his left. And when he walks a straight path, they rejoice with him and encourage him to be happy. They proclaim before him, give honor to the image of the king. But when he walks a crooked path, they mourn for him and they distance themselves from him. That can be found in the Zohar, chapter 2, 106, verse 106, part B. Okay, another aspect of this, Rabbi Steinsaltz says a person possesses a holy soul and it begins to bond with him at his circumcision. And even more so when he begins to learn how to keep the mitzvot. Nevertheless, he is infused with the main component at his bar mitzvah when he becomes obligated by Torah law to observe the commandments. The completion and the primary infusion of the holy soul into a person, transforming him or her into a complete adult Jew, occurs at 13 years and 1 day. 13 years and 1 day for a male and 12 for a female. And therefore, from that time, they are obligated by Torah law to observe all commandments. 13 years and 1 day for a man, 12 years for a girl. And they become liable for a punishment for their sins. This holy soul begins to be infused in the body when one is educated at a young age how to keep the Torah and its commandments, an obligation imposed by the sages upon the parents. And this is from Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Le'adi in the Shulchan Aruch Harav Mahadura Batra 4 verse 2. Now this is another subject change, but within the bar mitzvah. A crossroads. At the time of his bar mitzvah, a person stands at a spiritual and psychological crossroads in which he must choose his or her path. Proper education during this period paves a straight path for one's entire life. An infant is tainted by the filth of the evil inclination, and his wisdom and understanding are concealed and imperceptible. When he reaches the age of a youth, which is at the beginning of the 13th year, and the signs of wisdom and understanding appear, the young person is similar to a person standing at a crossroads. And if he does not know the particular way to each place, he'll stray. So too, when a person reaches the age of 13 years, he stands at a crossroads. He will either go on the path of good to the right or on the path of evil to the left. An admonishment and rebuke given during that time direct the young person to the good path and save him from the evil. He will then walk all his life along the path that he becomes accustomed to in his youth. And this is what Solomon in his wisdom said: train the lad in accordance with his way. Even when he grows old, he will not turn from it. Proverbs 22:6. That was from Rav Yosef Gikatia, Sefer HaMeshalim in 127. And here is our final story that Rav Steinsaltz wants to give us. A Jew came before his rabbi, and he complained about his son, who had just become Bar Mitzvah. But the boy refused to attend the synagogue or say blessings. He neglected the commandments, the mitzvot. The rabbi asked him, how did your son behave before he became Bar Mitzvah? Rabbi, the same way as he behaves now, the father replied. And he added apologetically, but he was not obligated to keep the mitzvot then. The Rabbi answered, you're mistaken. One does not become a Bar Mitzvah suddenly in the course of one day. We began to educate the Jewish child in Torah and mitzvot already from the time of his birth, so that after 13 years, he will be able to behave as a Bar Mitzvah. I hope you enjoyed that for your Mussar Monday. I did. And just to show you what's coming up next, next week, we are going to be looking into the Jewish wedding. And again, we're in this life cycle series. So we've started with birth, naming a child, circumcising a child, bar mitzvahing the child, bar mitzvah child. And next week we'll do wedding. And then the week after that, we will do old age and death and mourning. So we're looking at the life cycle. Check out this book. It's a concise guide to Mashava. It's an overview of Jewish philosophy. You can find this on korenpub.com, where they have all kind of Adin Steinsaltz type books. But if you want to study together, which, hey, no one studies alone, study together. You can just receive it right here, get informed about it, and you can go purchase the book and we can read it together. Why not? I believe this book, you can get this book for $35. And when you sign up with Koren Pub, they have all kind of things to help you earn points that you can knock off a few dollars here and there of your purchases. This is a 5-book series, so you won't be seeing the last of this series, but we're definitely going to make our way through this book. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Take care.